place is Muppet Treasure Island. I really don't care for this film. I definitely like the movies about the actual Muppets rather than when they're playing different characters. Also, the kid Jim was a person that I really didn't care for. There's only one good song in the film, which is Professional Pirate, and even that one isn't super memorable. A bunch of jokes didn't work either. Overall, Muppet Treasure Island is weaker in almost every way, so it comes in last place for me, although I did like Tim Curry as Long John Silver. In my number 7 is going to be Muppets from Space. I used to really like this movie. In fact, it was the Muppets movie that I always wanted to rewatch the most. I still like the comedy quite a bit, but it tries to answer a question with an answer that not many of us wanted. Gonzo is an alien. Okay, cool, but the joke was that we didn't know what he was. Now that we have an answer, it's not that satisfying. Most people probably have this one in the dead last spot, but it feels more like a Muppet movie than Treasure Island does. It's still enjoyable, I guess, but it is one of the weakest. At number 6 is The Great Muppet Caper. There are some really good parts to this film, like the Happiness Hotel, and the jokes are pretty good, but I don't like this plot very much at all. The whole segment at the fashion show felt boring and not entertaining at all. I really didn't like the villain or the plot in the middle section of the film. I do like the jokes and characters at the beginning of the film, and there is also a pretty good ending, but the middle section really drags the film down for me. I know a lot of you will have this movie way higher on your list, but it's just not for me. In my top 5 is The Muppets Take Manhattan. This movie actually has a very good plot. They set up all the stakes early in the movie, and the plot works very well. The group is separated a lot in this movie, but all the moments that they are together get even better. I really like how Kermit gets a ton of screen time, and this movie feels really focused on characters and plot, and for me, it worked really well. This film is only one spot higher than The Great Muppet Caper, but I enjoy it a lot more. The songs are really good, and this film has one of the best Muppet movie plots. In my number 4 spot, it's going to be Muppets Most Wanted. I really enjoyed this film. The songs were some of the best, the story was one of the best, and there's not much that I dislike. Even though Kermit was separated, the group was very entertaining. All the parts with Kermit in prison were great, and Constantine was a really good villain. I also really enjoyed Sam Eagle with the French detective guy, because they had so many fun moments. Just like they said in the opening song, the sequel is never quite as good as the original, but honestly, this film wasn't too far behind. Most Wanted is an underrated Muppet movie in my opinion. In my number 3 is The Muppets 2011. This is a great movie in almost every way. I was nervous about Walter basically being the main character, but it worked amazingly. This movie finally recaptured the magic of the original Muppet movie. The way that these characters were executed is exactly how I want them to be. I really enjoy the concept of the Muppets trying to get back together again. I just really like this film. After some mistakes like Muppet Treasure Island and Muppets from Space, this movie reminded me what a great Muppets film is. A great return to form for these films. My runner-up is The Muppet Christmas Carol. This is probably my favorite Christmas Carol film out there. Everything is executed so well. Michael Caine is amazing as Ebenezer Scrooge, and all the Muppets blend in great to their new roles. I know I said earlier that I like the Muppets as themselves instead of other characters, but in this Christmas Carol, it works so well. For me, this is the go-to Christmas Carol interpretation every year. Maybe this doesn't feel as much like a Muppets movie, but I think this film is so well made in so many ways, and it is one of my favorite Muppet films. But of course, number 1 is The Muppet Movie. Does anyone not have the original Muppet movie at number 1? This film is just perfect. It gets all the characters perfectly and shows such an entertaining ride about how they got to Hollywood. This film is just packed with amazing songs and jokes, and if you are a fan of any Muppets media, you will eat this film up and love it right away. Doc Hopper is a really good and funny villain, and every time this movie breaks the fourth wall, it's worth it, and it's so funny. I have a lot of nostalgia for this movie, and rewatching, it's just as good as it's ever been.